All right, guys, let's go. 5 more Hall of Famers. Let's start out with Mr. Teddy Ballgame. Ted Williams. The Kid. The Splendid Splinter. Ted Williams. By the way, these 1959 Fleer cards, which are plain days cards, super cheap. Super cheap. Of course, you don't have to go too in depth on Ted Williams here. A lot of people consider him one of the top, maybe top 5 greatest players of all time. Did have a lifetime WAR of 122, which ranks him 14th all time, ahead of players like Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, and Rickey Henderson. 2-time MVP in 1946 and in 1949. Won the Triple Crown in 42 and 47, but a lot of people consider his 41 season maybe the best offensive season of all time, which he didn't win an MVP or a Triple Crown that year. 19-time All-Star, 6-time batting title, 521 home runs, 344 batting average, 1,798 RBIs, 2,654 hits. Spent 1943, 44, 45, and parts of 52 and 53 in the military in World War II and Korea. Has the all-time record for on-base percentage in his career, 482. Throughout his maybe 19-year career, maybe 20, got on base half the time, 482. Last player to hit 400, hit 406 in 1941. Named Theodore Samuel Williams after Teddy Roosevelt, or Theodore Roosevelt, the president. His mother was Spanish Mexican American, named May Vinzer, and he did make a comment that had he had been given his mother's last name, he probably wouldn't have been received as well as having the Williams last name. Flew 39 successful combat missions in Korea, earning the Air Medal and 2 Gold Stars. Died July 5th, 2002, and his body was cryogenically frozen. His head was decapitated for the neuropreservation option from Alcor. I guess there was an option you could select to have your head cut off separately and frozen, which I think he's still frozen today. So let's talk more about that 1941 season. Which he didn't win the MVP that year. Had 37 home runs. Well, let me tell you who won the MVP. Joe DiMaggio won the MVP. Ted Williams had 37 home runs. Joe DiMaggio had 30. Ted Williams had 120 RBIs. DiMaggio had 125. Ted Williams had 147 walks. Joe DiMaggio had 76. Ted had a 406 batting average compared to a 357. And on-base percentage that year for Ted Williams was 553 compared to 440. So why do you think that Joe DiMaggio won the MVP that year? He had a 56-game hitting streak. So that kind of took the news, took the media by storm. And he edged out Ted Williams for the MVP, but probably Ted should have won it. 56-game hitting streak hasn't been equaled since. Well, neither has a 406 batting average. So, Ted Williams. Moving on, next player, the jokester of Major League Baseball, Mr. Rabbit Maranville. Was part of the 1914 World Series team. Had 2,605 hits, lifetime 258 batting average, 43.9 WAR. Ranks him 442nd all time, ahead of players like Al Oliver and Julio Franco. Played 23 seasons, which was a record until Pete Rose broke it. Spent 1918 World War I with the Navy. Was a clown, a practical joker, known as being very eccentric. He did some managing. In 1925, he's managing the Cubs. He would not allow any of his players to go to sleep before he did. He would actually go around on the train cars and pour water on them, and said no one was allowed to go to sleep before Rabbit Maranville would be. One time he dove into a hotel fountain and came out with a goldfish in his mouth. Rabbit Maranville. Next, a player I remember well, Mr. Jim Thome. Lifetime 73.1 WAR. Ranks him 89th all time. Probably a little underappreciated in the hobby. Ahead of Derek Jeter, Frankie Frisch, Larry Walker. 5-time All-Star, Silver Slugger. 2,328 hits, 612 home runs. 276 lifetime batting average, and 1,699 RBIs. He's a career leader in walk-off home runs with 13. Was the first person since 1947 to go into the Hall of Fame as an Indian without Chief Wahoo on their plaque. And Chief Wahoo was adopted in 1947. So he was the first one since then. Had the batting stance where he stuck his arms straight out in the high socks. Jim Thome. Next, Yankee great, Mr. Whitey Ford. Known as the chairman of the board, or Slick. Lifetime 57.1 WAR, 221st all time, ahead of Mariano Rivera and Oral Hershiser. 1961 Cy Young, 236 wins, 6 World Series rings, 2-time ERA champion, a World Series MVP, and a 10-time All-Star. 2.75 ERA with 1,956 strikeouts. Spent 1951 and 1952 in the Korean War. Was known a little bit for doctoring balls with a mud ball, or he had a sharpened belt buckle or something like that. He cut balls, and he said he'd done it later in his career when he kind of needed a little edge. And was the last surviving member of the 1956 World Series when he died. Yankee great, Whitey Ford. Last but not least, Mr. Bill Dickey in this 1936 SNS game card. Lifetime 56.4 WAR, 227th all time, ahead of Aparicio, Hank Greenberg, David Ortiz. 11-time All-Star, 8-time World Series, went to 9 World Series. But he won 8 of them. Lifetime 313 batting average, 202 home runs, 1,209 RBIs, 1,969 hits. Spent 1944 and 45 in the military. Loved quail hunting, and won the Bob Feller Act of Valor Award for his service in the military. Yankee great, Bill Dickey. Thanks, guys.